In this episode of Side Hustle Theater, I'm going to share with you 9 negotiating tips that I wish I had known when I was just starting out in my career, because I believe had I known these tips and had I applied them, there's no question in my mind I would have saved myself millions of dollars. Yeah, I said millions of dollars that I lost because I didn't know how to negotiate. I'm going to share those tips with you. And that, my friends, that's up next right here on Side Hustle Theater. Welcome back to Side Hustle Theater, where we create programming to help you build a successful side hustle. My name is Lou Reyes. Well, in this episode, I'm going to share with you 9 negotiating rules that I follow. And as I said in the opening, I follow these rules religiously. And had I known about these rules, had I followed them, had I practiced them, there's no question in my mind that when I did probably the biggest deal of my life, and that was early in my career, but had I followed these rules, I know for a fact that I would not have lost literally millions of dollars. I'm going to share those rules with you, and I'm going to start with rule number 1. Rule number 1 is never negotiate. And yes, this video is about negotiating rules. And for the most part, people do expect when you give them a price, if you're selling them what I would just say is a high ticket item, they're going to expect you to negotiate with them on your price. But if you know the value, that you bring, if you know that you are solving a customer's problem, give them your price. Give them the price that you've established and let them know this is what I charge. And I don't care if you're selling or you're selling a car, you're selling a home, or you're selling a product at your business. If you know your value, this is what we charge, and this is the value that we bring to you, and these are the problems that I can solve. Get away from talking about price. As soon as someone brings up price and they want to negotiate price, let them know this is the value. This is what we do. Emphasize those points. Once you do all that, once you sell them on the value of your product, the value of your service, they hopefully will sit there and say, yeah, you know what, I see that. I realize what you're doing for me, and I appreciate it. If they come back to you and say, well, you know what, I still think the price is too high, well then look at yourself in the mirror, because you know what, you didn't sell your service properly. You didn't sell the benefits. You didn't sell the solution that you bring to their problem. Always come back at yourself and say, what could I do better? And you could even say that to the customer. You can tell them, I have given you the value. I've told you what our product can do for you. And what am I doing wrong? What am I not saying to you that can convince you of the great value that I bring? So this to me is an important point. And quite often salespeople don't realize that they are not convincing enough. It's on them. It's not on the customer. It's not on the product. It's on the fact that you haven't sold the benefits. Hi friends, just wanted to let you know that we recently released a Side Hustle Starter Kit. It's a 3-page kit that will walk you through the early stages of launching your very own side hustle. I happen to think this kit is the ultimate guide to launching a brand new business, and you can get that kit by clicking on the link in the description box. Rule number 2, don't negotiate with yourself. And you know, not long ago I watched a Shark Tank episode, and the sharks were sitting in front of a gentleman who was standing there, and that person was trying to sell them on investing in his business. And after he gave his presentation, the sharks asked him some questions. They asked him about the product. They asked him about the solutions that product offered to potential customers. And the first thing that the presenter did was to lower his price. Now, the sharks didn't question the price, at least not in the beginning, but he thought right away, well, they're looking at price. That's the objection that I've got to overcome, and that wasn't what they were talking about. He was negotiating with himself. He lowered his price. The more they objected, the more he lowered his price. After a while, if I'm a shark and I'm sitting there and he wants me to invest, all I think about is, you know what, I don't need to invest a penny in this guy, because he's going to lower his price down to the point where I can just take it out of my piggy bank and invest in his company, because he's not going to really ask me or need that much funding. No, when you negotiate with yourself, what you are just simply doing, is what you're doing is you're lowering the value of your product. And what you're doing when it comes to price integrity is you're saying, hey, my product, my service isn't worth that much. And also what I find, and I want to bring this point up, is when a person negotiates with themselves, quite often what's happening is they're not confident in their product. They're not confident in what they bring to the table. So immediately what they think of is what they learned when they were maybe a kid or maybe a teenager or maybe a young adult is, well, it's about price and I'm just going to lower my price. Don't negotiate with yourself. Stick to your price. Negotiating rule number 3, never, ever, ever, ever accept the first offer. You know, if you're dealing with an experienced salesperson, somebody who basically does sales for a living, you can bet that they are holding back their best offer. They're lowballing you in the beginning. They want to see if you're going to bite, if you're just going to say, yeah, I'll take your offer, or pay me what you offer. No, don't take that first offer. Matter of fact, I don't take the second or the third offer usually. What I do, unless it falls into what I know is acceptable, what I know is the norm for that price, and sometimes even then I won't take that offer. I'll just sit back and hold and keep my mouth shut and just listen. But don't take that first offer. A successful salesperson, experienced one, they will give you a lowball offer. Now the worst thing though, what I found, the worst thing is to be dealing with or negotiating with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. These are people that have read books on negotiating, or maybe they've watched a video or two on YouTube about negotiating, and you know what? They're going to follow that advice that they get. They're going to come in and they're going to basically just lowball you, and they don't have the understanding of what a good deal is. A good deal could hit them in the head, and they still wouldn't understand what a good deal is. To me, dealing with someone like that or negotiating with somebody like that who doesn't know what they're doing, that's absolutely the worst. But the point is, and the bottom line is this: don't ever accept the first offer. Take your time, be patient, negotiate. Don't lose your cool, be smooth, and just keep rolling along and wait for that moment when you think, yeah, this is a great offer. This is what I need to do. If they want your product, they'll pay you your price. Rule number 4, never make the first offer. And I can't tell you how many times this has come up in my career, whether I'm trying to buy a car or maybe a boat or something that's rather expensive, and I go to the person who's selling this product or the house or whatever it is, and I go to them and they say, well, I don't know, I don't know what I want to sell this for. Give me an offer. And the first thing that I do every time that happens, and as I said, it's happened a few times in my life and in my career, I never give an offer. Never give an offer, because you know what? As you can guess, you're going to give an offer, and what's going to happen is they're going to look at you and possibly think, they're going to think, hey, I would have accepted less for this. When you make the first offer, what you're potentially doing is paying more than they would accept. If somebody says to me, make the first offer, what I say is, I really don't know what to offer. I'm not sure what to offer. I need to know more. So what you do is you say one of those things and you let them talk. You let them come back at you, but don't make that first offer. And I'd rather spend the first 10, 15 minutes hearing their presentation, listening to what they're saying, and then at the end of it, just saying, I got to be honest with you. I don't know what to offer you. Let them come back. Let them start that number. And whether it's a large item like I just mentioned, or whether you're even buying a business or negotiating a lease, if they're flexible on the lease, let them come back at you with a price, and you can always counter. But never make that first offer, because you may end up, and probably will end up, spending more than they would have accepted. Rule number 5 is listen more and talk less. And there's a strategy that I follow, and you probably have heard of it. I'm thinking it's 80-20. 80% of the time you are listening. 20% of the time you're talking. In other words, you want to absolutely make an effort just to listen. And when you're listening, what you're hearing is buying signals. You're listening to things that you can object to, things that when you bring up after you've listened to them, you can say, you know what, you mentioned this, and now that I think about it, now that I think of it, that's just not going to work for me. But when you listen, you're listening for those signals that can help you to negotiate a better deal for yourself. When you're talking too much, sometimes what you do is you just talk yourself out of a deal. Listening is the key to sales success. Negotiating rule number 6 is never ever give a free gift and never offer a discount. Experienced salespeople, they know that today's free gift or today's discount, that becomes tomorrow's starting point. And I want to give you a great example of this. I am very familiar with an organization, a company in Chicago. They have sales reps that go out and they sell natural and organic food. And they call on the stores, and they meet with the buyer. And every month or so when they go in, the buyer sits down with them, and immediately the buyer says, well, what are your discounts? Show me your discounts. And of course, the sales reps gives them the discount. They show them the sales sheet. Well, after the buyer goes through these sales sheets, what they then do is they say, okay, what other products do you have? And of course, the sales rep's going to show the products that are not on what they call deal. But inevitably, every single time, and I've seen these people in action, every single time what happens is the sales rep will go, you know what, I don't have a deal on this month. I can't give you a deal. And then, of course, a buyer will come back and they'll say, well, you gave it to me last month. Don't you have any stock that's left over? And of course, there's a back and forth, and sometimes the salesperson will kind of just give in or capitulate, and they'll just say, yeah, I can give you a discount on that. Well, that happens every single time, and what you're doing is you're conditioning your buyer. When you condition the buyer to expect a discount, and they know that your price structure is not solid, that it's flexible, then every single time you visit with them, they're going to want that discount, and then what inevitably happens is your sales will decline. You're not building value. You're not selling on the benefits of your product. It becomes a commodity, and don't whatever you do, don't build that into your business. You don't want a commodity business. And if that's what you do want, maybe you're in the grocery business and you do have a commodity business, that's another thing completely. But if you don't have a grocery store, if you're not a commodity business, don't act like one. Negotiating rule number 7, never itemize your costs when you're presenting a deal to a potential buyer. And I will illustrate this point by just giving you a quick example of what happened to a business owner that I know. He owns a basement waterproofing company, and during one of his initial, I think it was actually his first sales visit to a customer, he brought in the quote. He sat down with the customer, and the customer looked at the sheet and said, well, you know what, this is just kind of high. This quote you're giving me is a little bit on the high side, and how do you justify this? And the business owner that I know, the basement waterproofing guy, what he did was he started breaking out his costs and explaining what the items cost him and why he needed to charge what he was going to charge. And of course, what the business owner did was somewhat savvy. To me, it was obvious he was savvy, because what he did right away was start saying, you know what, I don't need you to do this, or I can do this on my own, or I can negotiate the purchase of this product or what you need to use to do my basement waterproofing. And really what I say, and I laugh at it now, and I've talked to this business owner a few times, is he really got beat up. This potential customer actually did become a customer, beat him up on price. He made the big mistake of just saying, yeah, these are all the individual costs that I have, rather than just saying, this is what I charge. And he could have generalized and said, well, this area to do this digging costs this, and to these supplies cost this. He didn't need to itemize everything. And it is really a big mistake that people do when they itemize, or when business owners do when they itemize their products. I can't imagine where a person would go into a hairstylist and just immediately question that person's costs for, washing their hair, because they might say, well, you know what, you don't need to wash my hair if I can save myself $5 on this deal, or $10, or you don't need to use that particular lotion or shampoo because it's too expensive. Let's go with a less expensive item. I know I'm being a little bit extreme on this, but I'm trying to make a point here. Never itemize your products. Believe in what you're doing. Believe in the value of what you're offering. When you start itemizing things, you open yourself up to being questioned, and you open yourself up to losing money on that deal. Negotiating rule number 8. Avoid a quick deal. In the beginning of this video, I mentioned where I ended up losing, and I lost literally millions of dollars in my early career doing a deal, and I lost that money. And one of the reasons that negotiation failed was because it was a quick deal. And I said this deal actually took a couple weeks, and it should have taken more like a couple months. Because what happened is this deal was being rushed. The person that I was sitting across from was a shark. He was known to be a shark in business, and he just pushed that tempo faster and faster. He wanted this deal to close quickly. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm a sharp business person. I built a $1 million business. And yeah, you know what? I can keep pace with this guy. I can just keep up with him. And he pushed it harder and harder and harder. And I wasn't smart enough. To slow this tempo down, to slow the pace down to where it was a pace that I could manage. And the thing that would have been smarter on my end, and I'll recommend this to you, if someone's trying to push the pace, slow it down. Just totally slow it down. It's like you're at the stove, and a gas stove, and you're turning that fire down to the lowest temperature, lowest flame that it could be. One of the things it could do, if that person's hyper and he wants to push this deal, is it makes him uncomfortable because now he wants to move this deal faster, but you know what? You're slowing it down. When someone tries to push a deal and make it go faster, it's usually because they see something that you don't. And what they're seeing isn't going to help you. It's not good for you. It won't benefit you in the long run. Keep that tempo. Keep that negotiation at a lower level. Take your time. Don't rush it. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. Not at all. Keep something in mind. If they're rushing that deal, then they see an advantage. They see an advantage that you don't see. Rule number 9, never reveal your bottom line. And there is absolutely no reason that I can ever see that you should reveal your bottom line. And I'm going to give you an example, and again, I'll use myself as the example to show you or kind of illustrate why I know this isn't a good idea. And I mentioned a deal that I negotiated years ago, and I've seen other people do the same thing, so it's not just me. But I negotiated a deal years ago, and I remember it took some time to get the deal done, as I previously mentioned here. It took a little bit of time. But we got it done. I wasn't happy with the deal, but I thought, yeah, this is the best I could get. I was being paid a certain amount of money, and I thought, yeah, this is okay. I can live with this. Well, after the deal was over, I went with the person I was negotiating with, and we had a friendly drink. And I'm sipping on my rum and Coke, sitting there at the bar, and we're talking back and forth, and all of a sudden the person blurts out, he says, Lou, I would have paid you more. And I looked at him and I thought, what? What are you saying? I thought this was the best you could do throughout all the negotiation. That's what you led me to believe. And I wanted to get this deal done, so I went with it. He says, no, I would have paid you more. I absolutely would have paid you more. And I remember just being surprised. And, weeks went by and years went by. And even today, I still think about it. I think, you know what? I guess I should have thought more about that deal. But more than that, I think to myself, why did he reveal his bottom line? Why did he tell me that? What was it? It wasn't necessary. To this day, I haven't forgotten that happened. And to this day, I've not dealt with that person. And this has been a couple decades. The same thing holds true if you're the person who's doing the selling. And previously, I mentioned about salespeople who called on stores and they sold them products. It was actually natural and organic products. And I can't imagine a sales rep closing a deal with a store owner or a buyer, and after the deal's done, I can't imagine the wisdom or the lack of wisdom. I can't imagine that salesperson saying, you know what, I gave you a discount, but I would have given you more if you would have pushed. because all that does is creates bad will, ill will. That's buyer. He won't want to deal with that sale rep again, or if he does, he's going to beat the hell out of him because he will be angry and he won't have forgotten. He won't have forgotten that he was basically taken advantage of. Never reveal your bottom line. It's not to your benefit, and it's certainly not to the benefit of the person that you're negotiating with. It just causes hard feelings. Well, that's all I got for you today, folks. I do appreciate you watching this episode of Side Hustle Theater. I think this is one of the most important videos that I can produce, and I really hope you take it seriously because there's no question in my mind these rules will benefit you for the rest of your business life and the rest of your life. Have a great day, everybody.